welcome back. WorshipTeamTraining.com. Sitting here with author, theologian, I would say.
Wow.
Speaker, and also worship leader.
Yes.
Ian Cron has been with us. We're here at the worship gathering here in Laguna Beach, California. We're here at a noisy plaza section right off the Pacific Coast Highway here in the evening. And Ian has agreed to come sit with us, and we just had a worship gathering led by good friend Martin Allen with the Worship Mentor Network. And Ian was going through a lot of historical texts and his story basically on sacraments, the interplay of that, communion within worship. He's written a great book called Chasing Francis that's really based on the, not so much, but based on the life of St. Francis of Assisi. And really it was his story that interplayed into the life of Francis, because can you tell us why did you choose St. Francis? How is the life of St. Francis, or how is that important to worship? And can you give us a little bit of backbone to that?
Yeah. Well, I think St. Francis is the consummate postmodern saint, if we can use that word still.
Yeah.
He's the saint, I think, that speaks most prophetically to the world that we live in right now. He is I believe, the type of Christ follower the world is really yearning to see again. And someone who is a peacemaker. We're talking about a guy who led the first transcontinental peace delegation to make peace with Muslims during the Christian Crusades. Here's a guy that, 800 years ago did what people think is new today. To care about creation, to care radically about the poor, to be peacemakers, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I always tell my emerging church friends, it's already been done.
So it's nothing new that we thought of.
It's not. It's just a return to, some really excellent fundamentals.
What you studied from the life of from Francis made an impact on you and your worship. Can you tell us about what that meant to you?
Oh, man. Well, theologically and from a worship perspective, we this idea that we don't just one teeny thing. When we have communion or the Lord's Supper or the Eucharist or whatever your tradition, chooses to call it, that God said it's shared, with all of creation.
Because in communion,
yeah,
not everybody does communion the same way,
right?
And I don't mean to sound weird, but not everybody sees communion as a worship experience. They just see it as a segment, part of worship.
You take, you break, you bless, you share.
Huh.
Okay, so
wow.
That's just right in the Bible. That's just Jesus at the table, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, he took bread and broke it, gave it to me. It's just take, break, bless, and share. Well, that's a fourfold pattern of life.
Yeah.
That's how we should live.
Right.
Right.
Very
so
true.
It's like that metaphor in your community is incredibly powerful, and people are skitty about it, because they don't quite know what to make of communion. Well, what exactly happens to that bread and wine? And the Catholics believe in transubstantiation.
Right?
Yeah, just the Catholics believe in transubstantiation or transessentialism, and these people over here, the Anglicans, they believe in consubstantiation. The Lutherans do too.
And what does all that mean?
Yeah, anyway? And these people, it's a memorial meal. Nothing, it's just it's just bread and juice, and we just do it to remember, and just we'll just do it once a quarter, and it's just, and everybody's got this anxiety that what if it gets too magical or mystical or supernatural, and of course one side says, well, we can't become Catholic or that Orthodox, or we can't. I really like to say when I said tonight, which is, I don't know what happens, and neither does anybody else.
Right.
You can speculate all you want.
We're not instructed with that from the Bible. Doesn't say that.
Jesus does not say you need to know what this. He just says take, eat, remember. Now, just because he says remember, it doesn't make it a memorial meal.
Right.
Don't run with that ball. I'm just saying something. I have seen healing and good things and lives mended.
But we do agree that something special and unique does happen, because we're taking the body of Christ and the blood of Christ together, as you said, in unison, and embracing all of what God has created, those elements of bread and wine, as we're in union with one another, and then in union with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And I think in many worship services, we just kind of gloss over that. It's almost like we just sing the song, we take the bread and the cup, and everybody has their own individual time, and that's it.
Yeah. You know, in a worship service, we've overprivileged preaching,
Right.
I think.
Right.
And we've made rock stars out of people who have a particular gift of persuasion and teaching and insight and wisdom. And post-Reformation, that gift has been over-elevated.
Yeah.
And what then happens for some worship leaders, not in all situations, there are great senior pastors and teachers, okay? But in some situations, they're placed in a position of being, like I think I said earlier in the weekend, it's kind of like being the warm-up band against the bad sound check. You know, your job is to go out there and warm up the crowd, soften the hearts. You don't get the best sound check, but you get to play right before the big act.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, but it's true.
Right. Okay.
It's true.
So that's craziness.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, I'd rather work at a Disney park.
Wow.
You know what I mean? On the stage at the Disney park, because, you know, at least that's honest.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
true.
You know, that's entertainment. I mean, you know, that's it, right? So, but when you bring things into balance, and I think this is what some traditions are really good at, okay, so one way of knowing truth is through this, right? The discursive interpretation, exegesis of text and idea. But there's another way of knowing, which is, let's say, through great music and great art. It's as powerful.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's more powerful than teaching. It's a different teaching.
Right.
Right?
But it's still teaching.
But it's still teaching, sure. And it can be as epiphanic, right? Epiphany can come to you in great music or art for some people, much more than it can through that teaching office. Now, for other people, it can come through an experience of God in things like the Eucharist, right? Where the symbol acts on them in a way that's life transforming. And you know, they have an experience of God that they could not have apart from partaking in that rite. Rituals matter.
Yeah.
Very, very much.
Yeah. Well, it's like singing the old hymns too. It's a connection point to God.
Yep.
And plus, some people just like having that order and structure to guide their confessions of God.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. As long as it doesn't lapse into sentimentalism, then it's fine.
Right.
If it starts becoming sentimentalism or nostalgia,
then it becomes personal preference and agenda, and we start.
Yeah, and also it's like, I don't know. I do know. I think nostalgia is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it means that now
it becomes a service unto us instead of service unto God.
Yeah. Well, just think about it for a second. Nostalgia is a longing for days that are gone. It is not good thinking.
Yeah.
It's not good eschatological thinking.
Right.
It's not thinking well about the future.
Yeah.
It's saying the best is behind us.
Right.
So for a Christian, nostalgia is not necessarily. No, listen. I have warm feelings about different moments in my past.
Right.
But that kind of mawkish nostalgia that people get, the best is ahead.
Yeah. I mean, are we saying that the coming of Christ is lesson?
No. This is prologue.
Right.
Everything is prologue.
Right. Can you tell us what it means to kind of worship and looking forward to Christ's return? What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the beautiful thing is that in liturgy, it's there. You know, we talk about the history of redemption beginning in Genesis, right? That the gospel doesn't begin in Matthew; it begins in Genesis, and that God is in the. I had an African American preacher friend, older man. He used to say, "The Bible is the story of how God gets back what was always His in the first place."
That's true.
That's kind of the story of the Bible.
Right.
So the future is, in worship, is that looking forward to the day when that restoration is complete. But in the meantime, you know, we continue to gather and to muster our resources. Alexander Schmemann, I think it was Schmemann, the Orthodox theologian, he said that the most important words in the liturgy were, "Go in peace to love and serve the Lord."
Wow.
It's the very last thing said at the Mass.
Right.
You know, "Go in peace to love and serve the Lord." And the people say, "Thanks be to God." Because it's roll up your sleeve time. You know, when you walk out the door, it's roll up your sleeve time. It's not, you know, anything less.
And then we are to be at peace. You talked a lot about that as well.
Yeah.
Be peacemakers.
Yeah, we have a lot of peace lovers. But we confuse being peace-loving people with being peacemaking people. And they're two very separate things. It's very easy to be peace-loving. I mean, everybody wants an absence of conflict. But to be a peacemaker is to step into the breach of conflict and to try to bring a peace where there is no peace. And that may be inside of your own riven life, to step into that gap, or to step into the gap of, you know, broken relationship elsewhere. We were, as we were just talking about the worship we had tonight, as we were singing the word shalom, I was so struck that here were professional worship leaders who are beautiful singers. And a lot of the chords we sang were dissonant.
Right. Yeah, that was intriguing.
It was very intriguing.
Yeah.
And I thought actually it was a step forward. It wasn't like, you know, because we had done it on the first night we were here, and it was all these beautiful, open, you know, sort of lush chords. And it was like, wow. And then tonight as we sang together this, you know, this word peace, it was dissonant. And I thought, you know, that's honest. That's realizing that, God, we live in a world where that harmony, that inner harmony, that shalom lives in existence with the dissonance of what is around us.
It's like the balance and counterbalance.
Yeah, but we are a people of that peace, the hope of that permanent harmony, living in a riven world. And so there's disharmony too.
Right. You mentioned about the three things involved in worship, which intertwine like a cord, and that would be peace.
Nope. Beauty.
No? Beauty.
Truth.
And
goodness.
And goodness.
Not new ideas. And they were really more not just about in worship, but just in human community.
Right.
That there are people who experience the love of God and give the love of God away in, you know, typically one of those categories more than the other two. Doesn't mean that you don't care about the other two. It just means that you're not as invested in them or as magnetically drawn to them as you are to the one. So most worship leaders are beauty people, right? They love aesthetics.
Yes. Yeah.
It's all about the aesthetic. I mean, tonight we were setting up for worship. We got 5 guys worrying about the lighting.
Yeah.
So we care about melody and sound and language. We should color, all of that. But what I get at church is all the layers of meaning that, you know, stand behind all of these experiences.
And tell us about your new book, the book title.
Jesus, My Father, the CIA, and Me, a memoir of sorts. It's the longest title out there.
And we can find it where?
Oh man, you can get it anywhere books are available. You know, Amazon
too.
Barnes and Noble, you go to thomasnelson.com and get it there. But wherever fine books are sold, you can get that book.
And your website is?
Ian Cron, IANCRON.com.
Awesome. Well, Ian, it's been a pleasure, man.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, that's good.
And guys, we thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back next time, worshipteamtraining.com.